on the stage. I took Borderland Road to get there. I'm looking at Mexico, and there's this crowd. It's a mixture of Hispanic and Caucasian, and all kinds of amazing, beautiful people, and church people and neighborhood people, and I mean, it's everybody.
Yeah,
everybody, And I'm singing Borderland, and I'm like, what do you think these people think I'm talking about while I'm singing this song? Because like you said early on, you think about the words, you write them, and then you play it 400 times, and your muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
I'm singing the words, and I'm like, I don't feel like a boy. I don't feel like a man. The things I don't understand. Help me, Holy Jesus. Won't you show me how to live?
Yeah, you can't live by the law.
I can't live by. I've got monsters at my table. I got Bibles bent like shivs. Then here's the kicker: help me, Holy Lord. I see the light of heaven's porch. But so many of us are born outside your chain link fence.
You're listening to the Ferment podcast, conversations about worship and transformation. Today's guest is John Mark McMillan. John Mark is a platinum-selling songwriter and recording artist, best known for his songs How He Loves, Future Past, and King of My Heart, co-written with his wife, Sarah. This episode is brought to you by Monk Drums. Monk Drums is a creative desert venture that strives to combine beauty and business as one heartbeat. Monk Drums' main focus is handcrafted wooden drums that allow us to love, assist, and serve all who accompany us on this path. Use the coupon code FERMENTPOD to get 5% off your Monk Drums order. Find them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Monk Drums. And every Monday, look for hashtag Monk Drum Monday. Speaking from personal experience, Monk Drums are wonderfully crafted and they sound amazing. They blend the best traits of both the djembe and the cajon, and I found them to be incredibly versatile in both the live and studio environment. Check them out at monkdrums.com.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at worshipteam.com. Worshipteam.com comes preloaded with over 12,000 songs, with new songs being added all the time. Hillsong, Bethel, Vineyard, Six Steps, Jesus Culture, just to name a few. Service building with Worship Team is a snap, and all the songs are completely legal and licensed. You can also find them on social media, Facebook at worshipteam.com, Twitter at worshipteam, Instagram at worshipteam_WT. Visit them at worshipteam.com for a free trial today. Complete worship planning with thousands of songs, easy interface, mobile apps, and legal rights for your church. All you need in one place, worshipteam.com.
Hey everyone, this is Darren Verrier, Director of Publishing for Vineyard Worship. We release a new single on the first Friday of every month. Our latest single, Jesus Beautiful, is a rich modern hymn centered on both the deity and humanity of Jesus.
Jesus, you are God, come near us. God here living with us. God within our reach. God's fullness dwells in you, made like us. All God's strength in weakness. God embracing need.
Find Jesus Beautiful and all of our singles wherever you listen to music.
Hey, what up, everybody? You're listening to the Ferment podcast, and today I've got a super special guest. John Mark McMillan is back with me.
Hello.
That's right. This is your second time on the
It is.
podcast, JM.
Technically, it's the third because remember the first one got stolen.
Hey, did you know that I got it back?
You did.
I got it back. Check this out. Okay, so people don't know this story. I did this episode with John Mark. We were on your tour bus.
On the bus.
And then my family went to the mountains with Andy Squire's family, and I left my little Pelican case with the recorder in there.
Yep.
4 months later, the owner of the cabin calls my wife and says, "Hey, we found that recorder." They had put it underneath the sink because they thought it was a drill. They didn't even open up the case. They thought it was some sort of a drill.
Oh my
so I had
gosh.
that episode.
That's amazing.
And some other lost episodes.
Oh, you should do the Lost series.
That's it.
You should do a whole series of Lost episodes. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I need to lose some more episodes first. Yeah. So yes, to your point,
Yep.
technically the third time being on the Ferment, and but this time you're in my hometown.
I am. I definitely am.
Welcome to Campbellsville.
Oh man, thank you. I love it here.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good weekend.
Yep.
We're doing a little something called Songs and Stories at my church.
Yep.
But right now we're gonna do some podcasting and some conversation. And I was wanting to talk about your new record.
Yeah, sure. Let's
You're
do
neck
it.
deep, right?
I am.
Okay, so I know that you've been writing and you've sent me a tune. How far in are you?
Well, it's hard to say. You know, there are those different moments. Like early on, I was like, this is going to happen fast. I've got super talented musicians in my hometown. And I've got the super talented producer. His name is Jacob Early that I'm working with.
And you're doing it in your basement.
I'm doing it in my basement. So Jacob came over a while ago. And we just messed around and we created some kind of cool things. It's like, I think we can do this. So we just jumped in and it just felt like it was going incredible. You know, Jacob's super creative. You know, we've got these guys and girls coming by the house, like just as, you know, like, hey, what do we need? We need, let's do some keyboards, you know. All right. And we have Leo come by and do some keyboards, have my buddy Ben Roberts come by and play some piano and, you know, just sort of whatever's happening. Right. And so at first, and this is super normal for me. First, it's just, I was like, man, we could finish this thing up by September. So this could be done.
So you're encouraged.
I am encouraged, but then you reach that thing where I think I forget that like that last 10%, it takes like another 50% worth of energy.
Yeah.
You know, so like I think I need at least 2 more songs I haven't written.
Okay.
I need to finish writing about 5 songs. And then we like, you know, it's sort of like we're doing real good. Then I'm like, this is feeling too finished. We need to go back and start clearing things out. You know, we lost a little bit of emotion here and there. It's super normal.
Yeah.
You start piling on instruments. Like, wait a second. I don't know that the drums are just right here. Let's dig back. And sometimes the old vocal, you're like, God, the scratch vocal was just the vocal. And I do this every time. I'm like, I'm just do this crappy scratch vocal that we can work from, and then we're going to redo it later. And then it's like not complete enough to use, but like I can never recreate it. I need to.
So do you get demo love?
We don't do demos so much,
But I mean, like, do you fall in love with that? You fall in love with your initial vocal.
I do. I fall in love with the demo, and I think it's for 2 reasons.
Okay.
I think number 1 is because when you're doing the demo, you don't care. And there is an element to not caring. It's not like you don't care, you're into the song, but you're not focusing in on your performance. Because like when you hear a musician, like, I don't want to hear a technician, I don't want to hear a computer, I want to hear like someone creating an emotional expression, right?
Yeah, you want a beating heart.
Exactly. And that's what you get on a demo. You know, it's because you're not overthinking it. You're just like, this is awesome, and just blah, and it's there. Okay, and then the other side of it is I've realized that your imagination is always better than real life. Always better than real life. So when you write a song, you're like, I'm missing a few lyrics here, I'm missing a bridge here, you know, this is going to be incredible. In your mind, like the lyrics that you haven't written, but that you imagine will be there are always better than the lyrics
super funny.
that you
That is
actually
super
write.
funny. Yeah.
And
it's
so
true.
like, yeah.
Yeah, so you're just hyped on the song.
You're
like
hyped,
you're hyped
yes.
because you made something out of nothing.
Yes.
It's not quite finished, and you're sure that the best parts are coming.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's easy. That little line, that little bridge, oh, I'll knock that out of the park. You know, and then you start filling in those blanks. You're like, yeah, it's not as good as it was, but it is. It's just you're filling in the blanks, and the things you filled in are not as good as you dreamed they were going to be.
And then you
Super
start working.
normal. Yes.
And then you start working.
Then you go to work. You're like, all right,
Yeah.
so we're done dreaming now, and now we're working.
That's
it's
right.
great.
Yeah.
It's really great, but it's like, oh man, I thought this was gonna be easy this time.
Yeah.
And it has been pretty easy. I'm working at my house.
You've never done that, right? Not
No,
like this?
never done that. So I mean,
Yeah.
I literally get up, I eat breakfast with the kids, I take the dog on the walk. You know, Jacob shows up around 10 o'clock, and sometimes I'm in my shorts,
Yes.
my gym shorts, and we just go to work, and it's so much fun. So like I really can't complain.
Do you think the energy of fun is coming into the songs?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it is really different because I've written more heavy type songs. I've had this dream for years.
John Mark, I feel like you always write heavy type
I always
songs.
write heavy songs. I do. But I've had this dream for years that I wanted to write these songs with kind of heavy lyrics or themes that sort of hung out below the surface and had this like exciting, maybe sort of pop sheen on the surface. So
you're talking about like some juxtaposition between the themes and the sonic landscape?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, let's still have some songs that are more like laid back. But if you listen to my records, like most of my songs are like moderate to slow tempo wise. I'm always like, I need a couple of up-tempo songs just to make this record listenable as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you ever noticed that, but too many mid-tempo songs. It's a mid-tempo song is great. A lot of worship songs are mid-tempo.
Almost all worship
But
songs
back
are mid-tempo.
to back, at a point you're like, all right, I need some Beyonce right now. I need,
Yes.
I need,
And why do you think it is? Oh, let me say it this way. Why is it so hard to write an up-tempo song?
It's hard in the worship world for a couple of reasons. Like, number one, I think it's just technical. So worship is one of the few genres where like you expect the audience to sing every single word. So at mid-tempo, you have more opportunity to catch those words, right?
Yeah, the words come at a pace that we can actually do it.
And that's why I love 6/8, because if you think about it, you have two more beats, because I'm a wordy writer. But no,
Yes.
if you think about it, try and do a song like even Future Pastor How He Loves in 4. You don't have room for all those words.
Yeah.
And
Death in His Grave.
Death in His Grave. Yeah.
You're always working with some extra
I am.
room.
I know. I had a guy online accuse me. He's like, try writing a hit song that's not in 6/8. I was like, yeah, but 6/8 gives me 2 extra beats. I get more words per beat. You know what I mean?
You're saying the guy online was kind of like,
Yeah, like,
whatever.
yeah, you can't write a song that's not in 6/8. I'm like,
Well, like,
I'm like,
bro.
who cares? What if I said, try writing a hit song that's not in 4/4, man? Like,
Yeah, it's
who
like,
cares?
what?
It's
What?
silly.
Yeah.
But
the
it's,
internet.
it's funny. I mean,
Internet
it didn't
people.
bother me. I laughed at it.
Yes.
But it did make me think, like, why do I write more of my worship songs are in 6/8? Even now, I've written some songs like, there's too many 6/8 songs. I'm transfer some of them, but some of them like 6/8. I need those extra 2 beats for those extra words. That's why I think 6/8 for worship is really great, because you get those extra words. But like, I think that's part of it. The other part of it is that there's something about the mid-tempo, like physically, like I think what people want to do in worship and the way they want to connect, that mid-tempo vibe is more from an atmosphere perspective. It gets people in that particular mood. As this up-tempo songs are like move, move, move. It has something to do with heartbeat and maybe Christians don't always know what to do with those up-tempo songs. In the clubs, they know what to do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, they know exactly what to do. But in church, you're like, am I allowed to enjoy this as much
Yeah.
as I want to?
Oh, and this is making me think of a couple things, John Mark. Like, number one, an up-tempo song, it's kind of hard to write without it sounding cheesy.
There you go. I was going to say that.
Like,
It's
it
really
can be
hard.
trite. You can say
Trite.
like super true things, and then
They come across trite. That was the exact word I was going to use.
It's like, why does that happen? Like, why is it that you can say something at 80 BPM,
Yeah.
and if you move it to 120,
Yeah.
it feels
Yeah.
like Radio Disney?
All these little nuances matter, even with words. Like, there's a big difference in desert and dessert. But the only difference, you know what I'm saying? But the only
One letter,
difference
right?
is, well, written, it's only one letter, but spoken is really just the accent,
Yes.
right? So, like, it's really just, and there's a lot of words. I think it's present and present, I think, are even spelled the same. Two totally different things, but like literally the where you place the accent changes the entire meaning of the word.
Yeah.
And so in music, you have the same thing. Like the change in tempo, the change in the approach changes the meaning of the song, even though the words don't change.
Yeah, it changes the way we hear it, the way
changes
we experience it.
Exactly. Well, and also, you know, and I actually like up-tempo songs. I'm not putting them down. I'm trying for more up-tempo songs because I think it's fun, almost as a juxtaposition. But, you know, if you're like, we're talking about like weighty existential ideas. We're talking about, okay, Jesus died on a cross. We're talking about death and murder, and we're talking about, for the first time in the history of man's consciousness, as far as we know, the gods sacrificed to us, right? And you're going to be like, Jesus died for me, and Jesus died. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, we're missing something.
Exactly. And it's okay. That sounded a little bit condescending the way I said that, maybe.
I got it.
But it does matter. Those types of nuances really do matter when you're writing the song.
We were actually talking about this morning at coffee in a slightly different context. We were talking about how people always misunderstand Bruce Springsteen songs.
Yeah. Yes.
Kind of for the same reason, though,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how many politicians have you seen play Born in the USA
I know.
at their rally?
Yeah.
But they don't realize it's a protest song.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's got so much juice in it.
Totally.
And it says USA.
I know.
And it's like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
But that's not what he's saying.
No.
Yeah.
Nope. No, that's not what he's saying at all.
Yeah.
He's like, I was born in the USA. I thought that means that I was entitled to a certain lifestyle, but guess what? Nope. I was not. I you know.
And I guess that gets back to what we were even just saying now about the tempo of a song and the way we experience it, and then even the way we understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the original version of that song is really slow. So I think, if I remember correctly, you know, because he put out Born in the USA, the record, and he put out Nebraska, like around the same time period. I think he actually wrote and recorded Nebraska first.
Did he have a Born in the USA version for that
and
record?
Born in the USA was on that. And then I think he realized, he's like, I just came off of, I want to say The River was the record before that. And The River, he had his first big radio hit, you know, so like before The River, his albums did really well, but he didn't have like a top 40 radio hit until Hungry Heart. And he realized, like, when he put out Hungry Heart, it's like, girls like my music now. That means my audience had doubled, right? And he's like, I mean, I love all this stuff, you know, all this political stuff, and I'm digging it. And he's like, I also really like women coming to my shows and making them twice as big. So I think he decided, we're going to put out a pop record first. But he loved Born in the USA, and so I think he did the pop record of Born in the USA, and then didn't put it on Nebraska. And later on, he released it. I could be totally wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it happened.
Well, I'm going to
But it's really interesting. It's really interesting,
You're the
isn't
Bruce
it?
Springsteen expert.
But yeah, and listen to that whole record, Born in the USA, and just imagine all of those songs Nebraska style.
Yeah.
And I think they all could work that way.
Of course they could.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love his Nebraska record.
Me
though.
too. One of my
It's
favorites.
so sparse and
I know it.
gut punch.
Dense. I love it.
Baby. Yeah. So on your record,
Yes.
you're writing towards heavy themes, but you're trying to make music that feels like it's going crossways.
I think that there will be some of what people, I think, would expect from me, and I think the first single may be a little bit more in the lines of like Death in Reverse or Death in His Grave or any of those other death songs. I guess I don't know.
You keep writing about
I know.
that, huh?
Lord help me. I know. But I actually think that like there's this ironic kind of pop element that I think people find ironic. What's funny though is even when I call it pop, like it's really still much more indie than what would be on the top 40 radio right now. But
what is it about your approach right now that makes it feel like pop?
well, it's faster.
Okay.
And I've sort of decided, like, for the most part, if it doesn't belong, then it's gone.
Yeah.
Unless I just want to overwhelm people, or less, you know, when I think when you know, so like if I'm doing the chorus twice, I'm like, does it need to be twice? I'm also, a lot of my verses are much shorter. I'm kind of like, some of the verses are like 2 lines. I'm like, no, I'm like, nothing needs to repeat unless it's like begging to be heard again.
Yeah.
You know, so sort of that approach. That the same with a little bit. I mean, we're literally a couple songs we sort of scratched out, and then I ended up bumping the tempo. And even Jacob got the point with the new stuff where he's like, "Is you sure this is the tempo?" He's like, "Cause you know, when you bump up the tempo, everything you've recorded, you got to go individually and speed it up. You can speed things up, you can't slow them down because you stretch out the file,
Yeah.
and it gets nasty.
Yeah.
Unless you want it nasty on purpose, which sometimes I like nasty on purpose, but you can speed things up without losing any, for the most part, without losing any information. I think.
Yeah.
You know.
So you guys have been playing with
tempo.
Yeah, just seeing what happens.
And, you know, and start out with some drum machines, some 808 stuff. And I've been also, and people may not even really hear this when they hear the record, but I always have something I defer to. In those moments when you don't know what to do, you need something to defer to. And like, I was like, what is something I really love that people would not expect that also I think would be really exciting? And, you know, so when we were doing Borderland, when we were recording that back in 2012, it's like we're deferring to Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel and some of that kind of stuff. And on...
hence the Tom Fills.
Hits the Tom Fills, yeah. And a little bit more of that on Mercury. And we also, I think I actually had a hard time finding who to defer to on Mercury. We ended up deferring some to Prince and still some to Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel and maybe even to like the Beatles a little bit. I don't know if you really hear that in there, but I'm like, all right, let's defer to 90s R&B.
Okay.
You know, you know, and I think at first the guys in the band were like scratching their heads. I'm like, just try this sound. Let's just try it. You know, let's just try it out. You know, and I don't think anyone's going to listen to it later and be like, this sounds like 90s R&B. And what's funny is a lot of my fans may not really know 90s R&B. And I'm not singing like an R&B singer.
Did
like
you
I'm
grow
singing
up
like
loving
me.
90s R&B?
My early experiences with music, I mean, other than church worship music, like praise songs, you know, like we did all the early Vineyard praise songs in church and Hosanna stuff even before that, you know. But the stuff I started listening to that I chose to listen to on my own when I got my Walkman, you know, my parents bought me the Walkman and I had like some Christian records, Carmen and Harvest and that Striper maybe, I don't know. But the stuff I chose to listen to was top 40 90 stuff. So I'm like 11, 12, 13. I'm discovering girls. I'm laying in my bed thinking like, I want to go talk to this girl. And I'm listening to like New Edition and Color Me Bad and Boys to Men.
Yeah.
Like I was way into that until, you know, when I got into middle school. I think that first year, I was into gangster rap too. That was my jam. And then there was a point when I made a hard turn. I was not into rock music at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And I remember I was sick. I was home from school and I was sick. And this U2 song came on MTV. I was watching MTV because my parents were home and I'd heard how bad it was. And I was just trying to see something awesome. And I never did. I was never fully satisfied with the debauchery that I had been taught was going to be on MTV, you know? But what I did discover is a song by U2 called... I think it's Far Away, So Close. Do you know the one I'm talking about? Where Bono's on top of this statue in Germany, and it's just got this boo-ding-ding.
Oh, yes.
I love that song. To this day, that's my favorite U2 song. But, I mean, maybe it's the nostalgia. And I was like, and it's a really long video, and I was like, oh, man. I was like, okay. All of a sudden, I was in the club.
Yeah.
And then I discovered Nirvana, and all the girls I liked were into, you know, heavy music back then.
That's right. Well, I remember you telling me at one point too that when you were making your first record, that you were maybe even hoping it could be more like Jimmy Eat World, and that your producer was like, "We're not doing that.
Not doing Jimmy Eat World." Yeah.
And in the moment you were maybe a bit upset, but you realized that was a gift.
It was later on. I realized like you're given your voice, right?
Yeah.
Like you're given your voice, and I realized like I don't have a voice that can scream above all that, you know. And I thought I'm just gonna I mean, back then I thought, you sing and you play guitar and you just, like a collage, you just smack the vocal on top of whatever and it's going to work. But that's not true at all. If you want to hear a vocal, every piece has to fit. And so it's sort of like I'm the only one in the band who can't change because I can't pick up another instrument. Like my voice is my voice. And so I think later on I discovered I liked the low voice. Pete Yorn was probably the first. I was like, oh, okay, Johnny Cash. And I was like, I love the low voice. Then the National got really famous. And at first I was like, whoa. I'm doing the low voice thing. Not like we're competitors because they're way better than me. But,
you should call Matt and just tell him, hey, can
bro,
you just hang off of that for a while?
I know. But I love them.
By the way, Pete Yorn has a new record. I don't know if
I heard he did. I haven't heard it yet.
It's really good.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that the cool scene is going to be into it, and maybe it's a throwback record or whatever.
I don't know that there really is a cool scene anymore, to be honest.
And you may be right.
Everyone's on their headphones, so everyone's listening to what they want to hear now, right?
Yeah. Well, this feels like kind of like throwback Pete Yorn in the best way. Like there's
I can't
kind
wait.
of that drum machine. Very lo-fi,
love it,
clangy acoustic guitars, and he's singing low about whatever. Slacker vocal.
He was also one of the first to take this sort of indie singer-songwriter thing and do it in like a pop way, like maybe people could dance to it, and and it's like sad and happy at the same time. I'm like, man, this is my jam all the way. Complex emotion.
That's right. So you are trying to do that mix thing on your record.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Totally.
How many songs have you got finished?
Well, we've scratched out 10. By scratched out, I mean like I've sang some sort of vocal and we have a bunch of instruments, and some of those are like, could be close to finished. And there's one or two that are way down the path.
Okay, so is this your normal process?
Yeah.
Because some guys like write the songs all the way, get arrangements, practice with their band, go into the studio, crank them out in a week, right?
Which is not a bad way to do it, by the way.
Yeah.
This just never worked very well for me.
All right, why is this process, why is your process so seek and find? I don't know how to, I don't even know what to call. I know it, because I've walked with you through these.
Well, I'll give you an example, and it's not the better way. It's just the way I've always sort of operated.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I can't think of the perfect example right now because I don't remember all this. I don't remember when I had this conversation, but I know this happened. I feel like I've actually changed the title of a record because Eric sent me artwork, and I'm like, that artwork is awesome. And this title works better with that artwork. I remember getting an argument with my manager one time. Not an argument, but a discussion.
Yeah.
He was like, no. You come up with a thing and we have the designer design to that. I'm like, but this is awesome. I was like, this is what people are going to see. I want to...
Okay, so what record did this happen on?
I can't remember which one it was.
Was this Mercury and Lightning?
I feel like Mercury and Lightning was...
Did you have that set earlier?
I feel like I had that idea early on.
All right.
I just remember thinking, like, I was in the car, it's like, Mercury and Lightning. That sounds like something exciting. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means, but I'm just, boom, I'm going to make a record under that.
Yeah.
And, and it has a lot of meaning for sure. But in the moment, it's like, it just sounds awesome. Yeah. What record was it?
But what I'm hearing and what you're saying is that
but it's the same in the studio. Yeah. Sort of like I write lyric ideas, but I just know that they're going to change when I start recording. But I'm like, this guitar sounds awesome, and so I'm going to get out of the way and let that happen. Or it's like, I need to go more in this direction because the beat changes, the cadence changes, the tempo changes, and so. But also, I tend to be a highly indecisive person. It takes me a very long time. I'm terrible at finishing songs, bro. Terrible at it. So I think a lot of times it's really...
Because you don't know if it's done?
Yeah, and because I haven't decided, I will not finish a song if I'm not inspired by every part most of the time. There are times we're in the recording process and everyone's literally standing there waiting. I'm like, all right, well, here we go. And I'll just try and finish it out, but... I've always sort of been that way. And I think, too, early on, I worked with a producer who was kind of, took his time. Mm-hmm. And his process was long, so I had a lot more time to do my stuff. But I've tried it. It would be much more convenient if I wrote the songs, went in the studio with finished songs and then recorded the songs. But I've never really done that before. I remember I was on a label for a very short period of time, and they wanted demos, and it's literally voice memos on my phone, not even finished. And I was like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I'm going to work.
Yeah. So, but your process is very much more organic, hunting, finding.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, what I'm hearing you say is you're setting a direction, you're inviting talent into that direction,
Exactly.
and then you're actually allowing them to change your opinion or to
and a lot of times
change the mode.
And a lot of times the music inspires me, so I'll put that. I'll come in with like, all right, here's a verse idea, here's a chorus idea. We need something in the middle. I don't know what it is. We're gonna need a bridge. We need a verse too. So we'll just scratch it up, start tracking, start making noises. I'm like, this is awesome. Then I'll take it, take my kids to the pool, and while they're swimming, I'll just have my headphones on and I'll write to that.
Yes.
And that's more exciting to me,
Yes.
Plus I have to stew on things.
Mm-hmm.
I really have to stew on things. I'm really not good at finishing things in a hurry. I've never been a great co-writer, because I'll sit across the room and be like, that's inspiring. It's like, I'll get back to you in a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm also I write a lot from feel, very much from feel. Usually, the word comes from a place of feeling, and then I have to be like, okay, why do I feel this way about this word? And then I have to sort of process it. Is the word cognitively?
Yeah.
Maybe cognitively or intellectually or...
Yeah, you're intuiting it first.
Yes, exactly.
It's all intuitive.
Exactly.
And then later you find out what it is that you're doing.
Which sounds stupid in one sense until you think about what do you want to accomplish with a song? Do you want someone to hear the song and be like, I really, really just agree with what you're saying.
No, it's
like,
true.
oh my God, I agree with you. I
Yes.
agree with oh my God, every word is I just totally right there with you. Or do you want people to hear your song and be like, whew, oh my God, the room changed. I'm a different person now because I heard
and I can't even tell you why.
And I can't tell you why. And then they dig in, they'd be like, oh, by the way, I really, really right there with what you're saying.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That brings up another question then, especially maybe for this record.
Yeah.
Do you know what it's about yet?
I kind of do. I feel like I do. And then when I try and talk about it, I rabbit trail so hard. So I'm willing to try.
Yeah. So maybe a word or two.
Well, okay.
If you were distilling your intuition down to a word or two right now, what is it?
Okay, so I'll give you one word.
Yes.
I'm going to say gratitude.
Okay.
Gratitude without denial.
Gratitude without denial. Okay, let's talk about the without denial part.
Yes.
So you're saying, what I'm hearing in that is,
yes,
this sounds complex, right?
Complex. It is. I'm not asking you to pretend like things aren't wrong. I'm not asking you to look at the world and say that there's not injustice, that there's not pain, that I don't.
And you're not even saying that you're grateful for those things.
No, I'm not saying I'm grateful for those things, but I am saying maybe consider for a second that those things feel so bad because there's potential for so much more.
Amen.
If death,
you said that pretty well.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You said that pretty well.
You.
That makes great sense.
Well, if death, if life didn't have the potential to be something so fantastic, right? Then death wouldn't be such a bummer.
Yes.
Right? Because when I throw my coffee cup away, I hope it gets recycled. But I really appreciated this cup. It enabled me to drink my coffee in the car, and it did a good job. But when I throw it away, I have no emotional connection. I am not sorry. I'm glad for the cup, but I am not sorry when that cup is gone. But when you lose somebody, it's different. Mm-hmm. You're not just like, oh, they were great. Oh my gosh, they were great. Good times. Good freaking times. Mm-hmm. You're like, you're like, I was not ready.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But
you're emotional.
I am.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, but I guess what I'm saying is that if death is so bad, even the badness of death points to the goodness of life. Yeah. Death actually reveals how great life is. Mm-hmm. And because if life wasn't that great, then death would be like the coffee cup, good run, moving on.
Yeah.
Nobody's like that.
What's brought that to the surface?
Well, ever since I was a kid, that's kind of stuff I thought about. I remember being
Were you mildly death obsessed?
I was.
Or
I'm not death obsessed, but I was. Seeing my son has reminded me a lot of how I was when I was a kid. I wasn't obsessed with death. I mean, there were moments in middle school I was probably, but I feel like the 90s were death obsessed. The music was so
Clearly.
dark.
Yeah.
I go back and listen to all my favorite music from the 90s. I'm like, Alice in Chains is singing about a man who dies in a box, or
Tool.
I know,
Oh,
but
dude.
some of these bands are like, they hit the top 40. They were on like pop radio singing about. I was like, God. I don't think people who listen to music these days who aren't our age have a context for how dark and how what the scene was like back then. It was insanely dark, right?
Well, and to even like me bounce
Exciting
off
too, by the way.
Oh, completely exciting, because it was in reality.
Yeah.
But to bounce off what you said a moment ago about your new record, Gratitude Without Denial.
Without Denial.
The 90s was the without denial part.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, not that the 80s were about gratitude. I think there was quite a bit of denial.
Yeah.
And then the 90s just came in and just crushed all that. They were
Yes. Well, because you remember in the 90s how I was even talking to my dad about this the other day. Like, if you wanted to endear yourself to another person in the 90s, the way you were probably one of the best ways to do that was to be fairly unfiltered with your conversation. Remember how awesome it was to say something that was insanely offensive? Nowadays, I feel like we work so hard not to be offensive. Oh, I can't use this word, this word, this word, this word, this word, and this word. And that's fine. Some of those words shouldn't be used because they have a lot of pain associated with them. But in the 90s, it was
shock.
Yeah, shock.
Yeah.
Shock and awe.
Yeah. Well, and wasn't the 90s when we bombed people to death with shock and awe as well?
Gosh, yes.
I think it was.
Yes.
I think it was.
Yeah. But back to Gratitude, like, so my whole point is like, I want to write a record that has some of these heavy ideas of like, well, okay, I guess your other question, but I remember being a kid, being on a buggy with my mom pushing me around the grocery store. It's probably too big to sit in the baby seat, but I was sitting underneath the buggy. Yeah. On a little spot, a little shelf underneath. I remember thinking like, is all this forever? Like, is this just for right now? I was like, and how do I know I'm really here? I mean, this is like an 8-year-old. I was like, I bet the universe is so big. I don't think I had a context for the universe today, but I bet the world is so big. There's another kid in another country right now riding underneath a buggy like me, having the same thoughts that I'm thinking right now. I guarantee that's happening. You know, I remember thinking about like, how is the whole world like work? What is it? You know what I mean? I remember at 8 thinking about those things, and, you know, and so like, I've sort of allowed myself to continue thinking about those things. I've had friends who've told me like, man, if you write more about relationships, it would open up your audience more. It's like a lot of people don't want to think about what happens after you die, or, I mean, I've got a song on the new record called Cousin John, and it's one of my favorite songs. But I'm like, I don't know how many people are going to understand this song, not because they're dumb, but because this is so heavily contextualized in my personal experience, you know?
Yeah, but isn't it true?
You know?
Or it's been my experience, the more specific you get about your life, oftentimes it becomes the more universal.
That's true. I agree. I agree.
I mean, how many novels have I read, or even like a person's memoir? Yeah. You know, I particularly love memoirs or like autobiographies where someone tells the specifics of their life. Yeah. Because it always ends up feeling like, oh, that's my life. I see myself in that moment.
Totally. And there are a lot of kids out there who are thinking about like those sort of existential things. And it's not, it's really like, I think too, we're sort of in church, I feel like we're sort of taught to like know it all, right? I mean, I'm a Jesus person. I love Jesus. I believe in Jesus. I trust in Jesus. Yes. You know, I'm also like not the person who gets to decide exactly what Jesus is, you know, right? Well, but I'm committed to who he is.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually having this conversation. I think it was on a social media thread. Yeah. People were kind of freaking out this week about the Hillsong guy who was like, I don't know if I'm a believer anymore, or maybe I'm not a believer.
Yep.
People were very upset about it. And I just felt compassion for the guy.
I did too.
Like so much compassion. Like
I did too.
I totally understand the questions that he has. And I don't mean that I understand them as he understands them. I just understand the heaviness of those questions and how they can feel, especially if you're kind of in the middle of I'm using air quotes here, big time ministry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you need to be an example of a certain amount of certainty or having the answers.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you're wrestling, and maybe, and people kind of beat him up this week about when he said, and no one talks about it. And people were like, bro, everybody's talking about it. You know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, wait. Maybe not in his world.
Yeah.
Or maybe when you're the leader of a church or the leader of a thing like that, and I'm not beating up Hillsong at all, because I think this just happens for leaders of ministries in general, right? Yeah. Like all of a sudden, things that are maybe on topic for certain people became off topic for you.
Yes.
Right? And
Definitely. Well, and one thing I've learned as a musician, like, because I've tried to, to expand my palette as an artist, to bring more colors and more, vocabulary. I've tried to put myself in situations that will generate new thoughts that I wouldn't have if I was not in those situations. I think people don't realize that, like, you're not fully in control of the thoughts you think. Your environment has a lot more to bear on the thoughts that you think, right? And so there's certain things you will allow yourself to think and certain things you won't allow yourself to think, right? And when you're in ministry, and things are going really good and you're responsible for a lot of people, you don't have the convenience. You don't have the, I don't know, what is the word?
It's capacity.
You don't have the capacity to consider whether or not all this stuff is legit, right?
Yeah.
You really don't. You don't have the opportunity. And so I think, and then what happens when your world blows up, it's not that you doubt God because my best friend died, so I'm doubting God. It's really not that. It's not, I think more it's like, my best friend died, I'm having new thoughts. And all of a sudden, like, the thoughts that you didn't allow to come in, that you didn't even consciously push those thoughts away. Just like, I don't have time. I got to preach tomorrow. I got 2 hours of counseling this afternoon. I got to perform a wedding on Sunday. I've got this marriage crisis I've got to kind of deal with. I'm going to have to make sure that we got a staff member who's quit and I got to replace. You don't have time, right, in your world, because a doubt could stop you in your tracks. And so you just subconsciously, you don't let yourself even have that conversation. Then all of a sudden your world blows up. I don't care about preaching tomorrow. I don't care about whether or not we hire a new staff person. Yeah. I don't care about whether this couple gets divorced or not because I'm having a crisis. Someone close to me died. Something happened to me. I found out one of my friends had been abused. Something wrecks your world. Yeah. And all of a sudden a stream of new thoughts come in and you're like, holy crap, how do I deal with these?
It's like a frame, right? Yeah. Your life has a certain frame.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it.
Yep.
And your context provides the frame.
Yep.
And if, like, for instance, you were talking a moment ago about, like, maybe everything's going good.
Yeah.
So maybe all I do is win, right? Yeah. I'm just winning.
Yep. You don't have time to think about losing.
Not only do you not have time, it's that word of capacity, I think. Yeah. Again. It's almost like you can't even have the thought.
No.
Right?
It's not in your vocabulary.
Not yet.
Yeah. Like, I actually heard one time that the Native Americans didn't see the ships coming over until they landed on the shore because they didn't have context they'd never seen anything like it before. And so
that's an interesting thought.
I've heard that before. That's worth researching.
That's worth digging out, huh?
It is. But sometimes when something is so far out of your context, it almost doesn't even exist because...
Well, and even back to this conversation that we were having just a moment
Yeah.
ago. Like a lot, I've just been noticing two things in particular. People have grown up with juvenile faith and then became adults, and juvenile faith doesn't work anymore.
Doesn't work.
So, and I'm talking here about like,
It's not childlike, it's childish.
yes,
right?
exactly. So maybe you grew up in church and you're 6 or 8 and you go to Sunday school and you get a age appropriate version of the gospel or whatever, but it never really gets updated.
Yeah.
And so that stays your frame. You have a 6-year-old frame of the gospel, and now you're 25.
Yeah.
And 25-year-old things start happening.
Yeah.
And then it falls apart, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's very scary for some people. Or similarly, I think a lot of us grew up in I'm just going to use the word evangelical. I don't even know what that word means anymore necessarily.
Yeah.
But an evangelical world where it just felt like all the answers were put out for us.
Yep.
Right? It's like, well, here's the 19 issues of life, and we have them all answered. Those are your answers.
Yeah.
You're 17. Now you're going to live 70 more years, and those are all the answers. And so there's this sense
Not
in
19,
which,
you mean the 2. There's 2, right?
What do you,
No, when I was driving here, I saw this sign that said, there are a lot of decisions to make in life.
Oh, yeah.
But in eternity, there are a lot of options in life. In eternity, there's only 2.
yes.
Click A or click B.
Oh, God.
And I was like,
That's depressing.
I know.
It's so depressing.
I was like, there's just so much more to the Christian faith than clicking the invisible button, right?
Yes, exactly.
I know.
And then what happens if you're 17 and you've clicked the option and now you realize I've got 70 or 75 more years and everything in my frame is set.
Yeah.
Like there's a certain point at which that might be comforting. And then there's also this other point where that's kind of the worst thing in the world.
Totally. And I mean, like I look back at my life and I'm like, if I approached everything today the way I did when I was 6, 10, or 12, I would be a stunted person.
I think that's a good word.
I'd be a stunted person. I would not be a healthy
you just
adult,
wouldn't be developed.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I mean, think about my approach to candy at 6 is basically consume every single bit you can get a hold of. If I approached, not that my life is insanely different than that, but I do have you know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
But now I have money now. I could go to the store and buy all the candy and eat it all. You know, girls at 12, my approach to girls, you know, at 12, or my approach to girls at 18, or my approach to marriage at 22. And any of those things is like if my approach to any area of life was the same now as it was back then, like I'd be a stunted person. I'd be in big trouble. I may not even be alive, right? And so why, you know, if your faith is the most important thing in the world, then why would I lock in at 6 and never reconsider?
Never move.
Never move.
Yeah.
I would almost say that, and this is hard. It's really hard, and I really hope people take it the right way because I don't want to send anyone over a cliff. But like, if you've not reevaluated your faith, then how do you know that you even have a faith?
Yeah.
If you don't deconstruct, if I didn't deconstruct my 12-year-old ideas of females, my 13-year-old ideas, my 14-year-old ideas of females, if I didn't deconstruct that and reconstruct it, do you know what kind of person I would be? We know exactly the kind of person I would be.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
you'd be
that
a brute.
stuff, and you know what? That stuff was fine at 13. It was healthy at 13. At 40, at 39, that stuff is not fine.
Yeah.
And so my faith has got to be, I got to break it down and I'm going to have to rebuild it, and you're going to have to do it on a regular basis. If you're just like, I'm just in, no questions asked. I mean, that's not faith. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's faith. You know, and, you know, I think that faith is sort of like, nope, I'm in even though I've asked the questions.
Yeah.
Even though I've considered the facts, I'm still in. That's faith. Faith is not pushing the facts away. Well, science, it looks like science is saying X, Y, Z. Well, I'm locked in on a good eternity plan. So I'm going to ignore all that. No, faith is saying, no, I'm actually going to take all that in and I'm going to consider it.
Yeah.
I'm going to consider it because if my faith is real, it's going to either learn how to include those ideas or how to live in the tension between those ideas and the ones that I believe are valuable for my eternal soul.
Well,
I don't know.
Isn't a great word for faith trust?
Definitely.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
I like even what you said a moment ago about science. Like if science is saying something,
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I just find that a lot of times those discussions are kind of like mind-boggling because it's like, okay, science may be saying something that's new.
Yeah.
Or maybe this is what I found. You used the word deconstruction a moment.
Yep.
We'll just go there for a second here, right? Like, I think sometimes people deconstruct because of juvenile faith or because they seem to get all the answers up front. Yeah. Right. And then things didn't change. Or
they're handed the packet. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, here, believe this. Just keep believing it. Right.
Yeah.
But then I also think people deconstruct because we've lived in a world now where in the last 25 years, it feels like a lot of the mystery got taken out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And by that, I just mean like maybe science or technology came in and said, well, you used to think this was mysterious. This is actually not mysterious. Yeah. It's this chemical. Yeah. It's this thing. Yeah. Yeah. And there's no mystery. And so people, I think in some of those areas, were just like, well, if there's no mystery or if this is just a chemical, then God kind of like evaporated with the chemical or something, you know? Totally. But in my world anyway, it's just another opportunity to trust Jesus or to trust God without denying any of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, so that's one of the interesting parts for me about, I guess, the deconstruction conversation. Yeah. Is that there are some places where things get taken apart, but they oftentimes open up new avenues for me to believe or to trust again.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is a weird analogy, but there are, these crabs that are born without a shell, and they have to find an existing shell from another organism that's dead. And they grow to a certain point, and then they have to leave that shell and go get a new shell. And but when they leave the shell, they're highly
they're vulnerable. Yeah.
But they will die if they stay in shell A and go to shell B. The thing is, none of those shells belong to them. They didn't create the shell. They received the shell, but the shell does what it needs to do for the organism to exist. And then there are those moments when you have to get out of your shell and you have to go get another shell. No one is suggesting they float, with no sort of defense whatsoever. In fact, there are these weird videos where you see the different size crabs actually line up and they'll be like, boom, and they'll all go swap shells and jump into a bigger shell. Yeah. The thing about with faith, it's sort of like your faith is handed to you, and at some point, if it's real faith, you're going to have to take responsibility for it. It's going to have to be yours, and you might have to move from the structure you've been given to a new structure. Mm-hmm. But I don't think anyone thinks it's a good idea to not have any structure.
Well, and that's the human reflex, isn't it? Like, we're going to have structure.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when people tell me they're not religious.
Yeah. I'm like, you're religiously not religious.
Dude, like, that's the most religious thing you can say.
I know.
Like, everybody's religious.
Everybody's religious.
Like, I have my coffee every morning.
Exactly.
Right? Like, come on.
Exactly.
I've got my morning liturgy.
I know.
Just like everybody else in this world does.
I know.
Yeah. So when it comes to deconstruction, I mean, I've known you for a good minute.
Yeah.
What's deconstruction been to you? Have you deconstructed?
Definitely have.
Yeah.
I definitely have. Deconstruction, like, for me, I think it's like this. When you're young, someone tells you this is the thing. Right? Like, recently I've been thinking about words a lot. How often do you ever think about where words come from or why a word is a word? Like, how often do we think about the fact that a word is a sound I make with my mouth, or it's something I scratch on a page? And it's a thing that's evolved over a long period of time. Like, the English language has not existed for that long, and we know where it came from. We know where those languages came from. We don't always know where those languages came from, but, language is a thing. But ultimately, like, people have this idea, like, I remember getting in arguments about what a word means. What a word means. I was like, but there's really no way to win that argument. I mean, you can go to the dictionary, right? But how long has the dictionary been around? And even the dictionary changes, context changes, right? So when we talk about deconstruction, like, I'm going to deconstruct a word, like, and I might say, well, what does that really mean? Like, what is this really coming from? So to me, it's not that, like, oh, I had this idea and realized, oh, this idea is totally wrong. It's more like I'm pressing into the scenery now, right? Like, and I want to find out, like, when you talk about, like, who am I? Well, what does that mean? What am I even talking about when I'm talking about myself, right? Because we have these ideas that we just sort of, like, we don't always press into, right? Like, what a thing actually is. And sort of all of our language, in one sense, is sort of shorthand for reality, right? Like, we have this sort of, like, shorthand or these nicknames for reality because we can't really, in our language, define what a thing is, right? And so when I talk about deconstruction, I'm just like, well, you know, I've lost my faith. Well, I'm like, what is faith to begin with? That's the thing. When they told me to believe, what they never did was tell me what it means to believe, right? When I was young, I said, you need to believe. How do I go to heaven? You believe in Jesus. But they never told me what it means to believe. And so what's funny is you actually have all these different ideas of what belief is. And a lot of the arguments and fights we get into in different streams in faith, a lot of it comes from this, that people have never defined what faith or belief actually is. And so they're saying, faith to me means this. Yeah. Faith to me means this. Faith to me means keeping America like it is. Yeah. Faith to me means letting people in. Yeah. Taking a risk on people who are hurting. That might be faith to one person. But we never sat around and defined what faith was. Yeah. So I think about that a lot. To me, that's what deconstruction is. It's not like, well, which religion am I going to follow? Is my religion the best religion? It's more like, what is religion to begin with? Like, what is all this? Yeah. You know? And for some people, they're like, you're getting spacey, John Mark. You're losing it. I was like, no, but like, if I'm trying to be a better musician, I'm like, what is a chord? It's a root, a fifth, and a third. And if you want to make someone sad, you drop that third. And if you want to make them happy, you push the 3 up to the 4. And they're like, you're taking the mystery out of it. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm like becoming better equipped to do what you actually want me to do to you with my music. Well, faith is the same way. I'm like, what is faith? And I think a lot of people want to argue, but they're not arguing with the same. They're using the same words, but they're not coming from the same places, right?
And even your music analogy there, you know, what is a chord?
Yeah,
1, 3, 5. Happy, add the 4th. Sad, drop the 3rd.
Drop the 3rd.
Okay, yeah, there's a sense in which you just, I'm using air quotes again, took the mystery out.
Yeah.
But there's also a sense in which you just interjected more mystery.
Yeah, I did.
Why?
Why does the 3rd make me sad? And why does the 4th make me happy?
Why?
And why does that same 3rd and that same 4th not do the same thing to people in maybe India or the Middle East?
Yeah,
where they have those other notes that make us...
Those other scales that make us feel crazy,
Why do they do that to us and not do that to them?
Yeah.
I know. Like, why? Exactly. And so for me, you're right. The mystery just grows.
It grows. And that's what I was trying to say earlier about faith, or, you know, the inclusion of science, where it feels like for some people maybe the mystery got evaporated, and so God evaporated with it. But for me, there's always that other question. It's like, wait a minute.
Totally.
Like, yeah, so...
Well, like they say God spoke the word into existence. Well, did God have a mouth? And what sounds did he make with his mouth? Yeah. And was there air when he made it? Because for a human to make a sound, there has to be air. And is it a sound if no one else hears it? Or maybe creation is the sound he was making.
Yeah.
Maybe creation isn't like, not like he made a sound with his mouth like we would. Maybe creation is the sound that he's making.
Entirely possible.
Yeah.
Well, I love this thing as well. Like, people talk about the name of God, Yahweh, you know?
Yeah.
The unpronounceable name of God.
I know.
And you've probably heard this too. Some people talk about how, like, there's a sense in which Yahweh is perhaps deeply related to the breath of God.
Yeah.
That which he breathed, right?
Yep.
And there's a sense in which when God breathed into Adam, he breathed his name into him.
Yeah.
And there's this sense in which for Adam or mankind or for you or for me to exist, even when we're just staying alive, we're silently invoking the name of God.
Yep.
Dude, that stuff right there, that's the stuff that's like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know always.
Yeah.
Like, what it is that the modern notion of whatever faith is, You know, I can't always articulate it.
Yeah.
But I just know that whatever this is over here, this isn't going away. And that moves my heart.
Yeah.
You know?
I know it.
John Mark, I guess in this deconstruction little phase here, what's been helpful in keeping your faith alive?
What has been helpful to keeping my faith alive? Gratitude, my family, and hope. You know, and the other thing is, like, I think some people deconstruct, and it's not that they overly deconstruct; they don't break it down far enough, right? And they say, well, now we know how everything works, you know, through science. We know how we got here. You know, let's say, for instance, I'm just saying, for instance, maybe someone would say, well, whether they maintain different ideas of, you know, Scripture or different approach to Scripture. Maybe they have one approach to Scripture or another, and they may totally walk away from the faith, or they may decide to interpret Scripture differently. But let's say all of a sudden someone says to me, well, I don't believe in God because evolution is obviously how we got here. I was like, yes, I'm willing to go with you there. Let's talk about that. But like, so you've deconstructed faith now because you don't believe that God spoke us into existence. But the problem is you didn't dig any further than that. You didn't ever think, like, why we're evolving?
Yeah.
Like, did you never think about that? Like, and where we're headed? And did you ever think about, like, you know, like how loving relationships seem to produce better offspring than non-loving relationships? And if God says God is love, and then you're like, oh, I can even find God in evolution if I want to.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not, you know, I'm not making any specific statement about what I believe or think about the world, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes I think some people just don't deconstruct far enough. And maybe that's the problem. When you're in ministry, you're not allowed to deconstruct. And our friend here is like, you know, he's lost his faith. And it's like, but maybe you haven't. Maybe you just haven't had a blank slate to build a faith on top of. Maybe you haven't lost your faith. Maybe you lost someone else's faith. And that feels like losing yours. But now you have the beautiful opportunity to work with Christ to cultivate a whole new faith.
Yeah.
Or a, quote, personal one.
I've just found that it's a God-haunted world.
It is a God-haunted world.
And even when I was in my period where I thought I was for sure losing my faith, I could never get rid of that sneaky notion that God was up to something, or that he was somehow the cause or a part in it, behind it, around it, upholding it. You know, it's just always present there for me.
Oh man.
I can't imagine any scene. I can't listen to NPR or read a science book or listen to a sociologist and not hear the possibility that God is the person behind this thing that seems to be so simple or seems to be so obvious.
Yep. 100%. And I think, you know, even like, gosh, I think a lot of people like to deconstruct God, but aren't willing to deconstruct themselves.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean, okay, so I'm going to ruin this. I'm not ruining it, but one of my favorite books is called Till We Have Faces. It's C.S. Lewis. It's his take. It's the one you can't find at the Christian bookstore that people don't talk about, but it's one that he considered to be one of his best. But it's a take on Cupid and Psyche, and in the book, it's called Till We Have Faces. And I'm going to spoil this for you. So anyone listening to the podcast who
you can just turn it off right now.
Even though honestly it doesn't really spoil it for you, but because it's so much to wrestle with. But I remember reading it as a young man and being totally disappointed at the end because I didn't get it. And then I read it probably 15 years later, and it blew my mind. But this woman who's the hero of the story, she's so angry at the gods for losing her sister, for losing things that were important to her. And through the process of losing all those things, she had to become strong. And she did things that were not great things. She had to kill people. And she was the leader of a medieval army. She was a queen. She had to do things, right, that she didn't even consider to be awesome. And she gets towards the end of her life, she has this encounter with the gods, because this whole time she's like, if I ever have an opportunity, to encounter the gods, I'm going to tell them exactly how I feel. You took my sister, the only thing I ever loved. She never married. You know what I mean? You took the only joy of my life, and she goes through this whole process, and her whole life flashes before her eyes, and she's standing before the gods. And I can't remember exactly what the dialogue was there, but basically she said, to the gods, who do you think you are? And the gods basically turned to her and were like, have you ever seen and considered your own life? And the gods are like, do you even know who you are? They didn't respond. Their only response was, she said, who do you think you are? And they said, who do you think you are? They're like, you don't, till we have faces, they're like, you don't know your own face. You don't know yourself, but you want to decide who we are, And it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm perfectly willing to deconstruct God, but I'm not willing to deconstruct myself. And if you're going to get really, really deep in this, like, what is consciousness? Right? And if you want to say, well, consciousness is just neurons firing in my brain, if that's all you want to say it is, right? Then God is still as real as I am, or realer.
Yeah,
right.
And what's difference?
If you take away God, and you're going to take away. In my mind, when you remove God, you remove yourself, because the context of the self outside of God is just too abstract for me. Maybe that makes me sound simple.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, like even when you're talking about number one, no one has yet been able to.
Well, let me say this
what
too.
Consciousness is
Exactly. And this sounds like a rabbit trail, but I promise it's not. If I get too far out, reel me back in.
Go down this.
But
rabbit
I have
trail.
this theory: is that science and religion are frenemies, that they absolutely need each other.
Yes, go ahead.
And here's what I mean by that. Science can tell me that a person who has different color skin is exactly like me in our
It's just
brain.
melanin.
Exactly. Science can tell me that. Science can tell me that a woman can be just as an effective leader as a man. Science can tell me that unborn children feel pain at a certain point. Science can tell me that the people across the border, if they had the opportunities that I have, would be exactly like me, right? Science can tell me all those things, but you know what science can't tell me? Science can't tell me why I should care about any of those people.
Yeah.
Right, and there's all this debate in the scientific community about things like abortion, and the scientific community is really silent for the most part, And I remember hearing an interview with a scientist saying, because we don't have an answer, we just tell you what it is, but we can't tell you why to care. We can't tell you who to assign personhood to.
Yeah, this is
science cannot tell. I mean, I obviously believe, people who don't look like me, people who are different genders, people with whatever sexual orientation, people who believe. I think all people have dignity and value,
clearly,
and we should all be equal.
Why, right?
But why?
Yeah.
And if you take away my religion, I don't have an answer for you. Science can tell us that the world, that the environments in the world are changing due to, the pollutants that we're putting out into the world, and that the climate is changing, and that there's a high possibility of destruction and war and refugees, and in the future. Science can tell me all that, but you know what science can't tell me? Is why I should care.
Why it matters.
Why it matters. And I think that's one when science points the finger at religion, which I think it should. I think that religion needs to turn around and point the finger back at science.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah,
science
because-
created all these things that we're doing to the world, right? And now science is saying, hey, we need to fix this. You guys need to get on board. But science can't give me a reason to get on board. Only
because if you're a
religion
if you're
can
a pure
do that for me.
materialist,
Exactly.
you just go, well, it was a good run.
Exactly.
It was a great run.
It was a great run. It was going to end sometime.
It was going to end sometime. Yeah. I mean, eventually the sun's going to burn out. Like, it's been a great run. But to your point, we can't just run on materialism.
Exactly.
Or let me put it this way. We could.
Yeah.
But why do we not?
Well,
and
oddly enough.
and why do people, and why is it that like inside of human beings, we carry this innate sense?
Exactly.
Even if we're, quote unquote materialists, why is it that we carry the innate sense that other people do matter?
Yeah.
And that the planet matters, and that our life matters, and that when people die, it's sad. Like, why? Where does that come from? And that is only, and I wouldn't even use the word. If you want to use the word philosophy, fine, use the word philosophy. But really, I think these are God answers, and God questions, right?
Yeah. Well, like
it's a God-haunted world.
Our idea of materialism doesn't even seem to work great under its own standards. Right? It's sort of like if we all acted like anarchist materialists, right? Then what would happen? Everything else will fall apart. It's really convenient for you to be the only materialist in the room. It's really great for you that you're the only materialist and that everyone else in the room is trying to be a decent person, right? Like those people who leave trash on the side of the road. It's really convenient for you that someone else is going to come along and pick it up. I saw that happen in the mall recently. It made me so mad. These grown ladies just left their trash, spilled their tea. They weren't even teenagers or anything, and just left it. It's like it's really convenient for you because you like this mall because it's clean. It's real convenient for you that someone else is going to come by and pick it up. And I think I'm not trying to be hard on people who are materialists, but materialism doesn't work great on its own. Materialism works really great when everyone else is religious. Yeah. But if we all decided to be narcissists at the same time, we're in big trouble. Yeah. Narcissism works great when everyone else is a decent person. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So, and you're really putting your finger back on this thing again of we can remove the mystery in an area, and we could declare that the mystery's gone, or we maybe step back into a greater reality, I'll use the phrase, change the frame, and realize that we haven't really removed any of the mystery.
No, because the mystery is part of the equation. Yeah. Without the mystery, the machine breaks down.
Yeah, it really does. Well, okay, let me get back to your music.
Yes.
Because of something we talked about last night, and I think it kind of fits in this conversation right now. You were talking about the song Borderland.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this real quick? Yeah.
Yeah.
You were talking about the song Borderland. You wrote that song, 5 years ago?
Longer? I probably wrote it in 2012.
Yeah.
I think the album came out in 14, so I probably wrote it in 12 or 13. Probably wrote it in 12 and finished it in 13.
Yeah.
Per our earlier conversation.
Per your process conversation. Yeah. So we were talking about last night how you wrote that song, and maybe at the beginning when you wrote it, it's a personal declaration of your own deconstruction process, right?
Totally, 100%.
Yeah, I'm living on the borderland.
Yeah, I don't know what I think. I don't know what I feel. I know I'm in between two places, and I don't really know how to get from point A to point B. And I know that it's difficult, but I know that I'm not going back.
Yeah, and it's that, and it's also that border between young man and man, all this stuff,
all
right?
This stuff.
And then you were telling me the story last night about how this 4th of July, you are in El Paso, Texas. And you are with your band.
Yeah.
And you're singing Borderland.
Yeah.
And you were kind of telling me the story last night, that at a certain point, sometimes when you're a performer, you can just roll through your lyrics and you're not even...
Yeah.
They're a part of you. Yeah. It's like muscle memory.
Yeah.
It's like almost bypassing your consciousness.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
But that you're standing on stage in El Paso, Texas, on the border, and you're singing Borderland, and it kind of crushes you that maybe you didn't write this for yourself, but the personal became universal.
Yes. Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
From the drive from the hotel to the venue, it's like a park, right? Yeah. We actually drove on Borderland Road. Right?
Really?
Yeah, we're on Borderland Road, and we show up, and I'm standing on the stage, and I'm pretty sure I can see like literally. Because when you're in El Paso, sometimes your phone actually thinks you're in Mexico because you're on the highway and you can totally see Mexico from El Paso. Like it's literally like, there's a fence in between you. But I mean, like you're literally it's like a neighborhood. You're right up against, Juarez, I believe, right? Yeah, so I'm standing on the stage and I promise I can see Mexico from the stage where I'm playing. We're sound checking and I'm just like, this is pretty interesting, and then the shooting happens. I mean, it's been a conversation, obviously, this whole time. And I played El Paso 3 years in a row on the 4th of July, and I love it. It's such a complicated place.
Well,
I love it, by the way. El Paso is a great place.
Well, here's what I love.
But I'm standing on the stage. I took Borderland Road to get there. I'm looking at Mexico, and there's this crowd. It's a mixture of Hispanic and Caucasian and, all kinds of amazing, beautiful people. And church people and neighborhood people. And I mean, it's everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody, and I'm singing Borderland and I'm like, what do you think these people think I'm talking about while I'm singing this song? Like, I wonder what they think I'm talking about. Then the other day we were rehearsing the song because I really hadn't thought about the words. Because like you said, like early on, you think about the words, you write them, and then you play it 400 times, and your muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
I'm singing the words, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't feel like a boy. I don't feel like a man. The things I don't understand, like, help me, holy Jesus. Won't you show me how to live?
Yeah, you can't live by the law.
I can't live by. I've got monsters at my table. I got Bibles bent like shivs.
Yeah.
Then here's the kicker: is help me, holy Lord. I see the light of heaven's porch, but so many of us are born outside your chain link fence.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, John Mark, I think this is for me what I love the story. You're emotional right now, and you should be. Like,
I always am. Did I cry all the time?
Yeah, I know. But it's one of my favorite things about you is
I will still kick you in the throat.
Yeah, I know you will. You're a big man. But I think what I love about this story, I love like 5 things about this story. One, I just love that if you're really true to, if you try to write something that's really true for you, that oftentimes the personal becomes universal. One, I love that art has a way of speaking to the future.
Yeah.
Like, I think even in 2012 or 13, you were intuiting the things that are happening because that's what art does, right? Like,
it does.
It's the canary in the coal mine. But then I also love this because I think there's something about the story we just told that's kind of a beautiful metaphor for deconstruction. Like, you wrote this song with one frame.
Yes.
And then we moved the frame.
We moved the frame.
Right? All of a sudden, that frame got bigger and you realized, based upon the context of where you were standing.
Yeah. Based upon my new context.
That's right. That's right. So
a new point of view, because I'm looking at Mexico and I'm looking at like this beautiful, different groups of people from the neighborhood who came out because the church advertised free fireworks. And they don't know my name. Some of them do. A bunch of them do. But like a bunch of them are just from the neighborhood. And they're hearing me sing. I'm like, what are they? All of a sudden, totally new context.
Totally new
I'm
context.
in a totally new place.
Totally new frame. Totally new way of seeing. And then that song, the meaning changes.
It changes, but it expands. It doesn't collapse.
Yeah, it doesn't. Oh, I guess what I'm loving here is that it doesn't invalidate the first meaning.
Exactly. It only
increases.
And that's a healthy deconstruction does that with God too.
Yeah.
It doesn't
it doesn't make Jesus less Jesus.
No, it doesn't. No.
That's the thing. It's like, it's not like he becomes less the Son of God.
Yeah. It's almost like marriage a little bit, isn't it? Before you get married, you have all these ideas and then you're like, your wife gets sick and she's throwing up, you're holding her hair, or like you're like you got diarrhea. I mean, I'm not trying to get nasty here, like, but all of a sudden you're like,
it's going to happen, kids.
Exactly.
This is going to happen.
This is life. Yes. You're doing life together, and you think, like, I remember thinking, like, on my honeymoon, I'm going to go down and use the lobby bathroom instead of using the bathroom in the hotel room. This sounds so gross, but see, that's my point, right?
Yep.
And like, you know, all these ideas you have about things, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I'm living with a real person, right? A real person. And that seems like that would be worse than your sort of like idea. But then after a while you realize, no, this is so much better.
Yes.
It's living life with a real person.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe it's the same with God. You're like afraid to break God down, but maybe God wants you to break him down so that you guys can be. And maybe some of your like ideals need to get shattered so that you can see a little bit more real idea of God and faith, and that's actually a way better thing than sort of your storybook idea of God.
That's right. That's right.
I feel like I could have articulated that better, but
no, I think we got it. I think that's it, man. I think that's it. And if God is God,
yeah,
he can handle it.
He can handle it, and he is handling it. He's not worried about it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's killing it.
Well,
he's crushing
John Mark,
it, right?
dude, I'm hoping this comes out in your record.
Dude.
I'm hoping some
Me
of this
too.
is in the record.
Me too.
I
sure
bet it is.
It
I bet
is.
it is. Hey, man, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I love it.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Thanks for who you are. Thanks for what you bring.
Dude, anytime. It's my favorite thing.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that this has been a comfort and a discomfort. That's right. All right, everybody. Peace.
Hi, everyone. This is Melissa Keller, Events Director for Vineyard Worship. If you've been enjoying the podcast, I've got a couple of ways you could really help us. First of all, review the podcast on iTunes or the podcast platform of your choice. This helps more people find us. Also, connect with us on social media, Instagram at the Ferment Podcast and Twitter at FermentCast. Thanks for listening. See you next time.